des francophones ici? Ah, ben deux. Deux personnes. Mia, if you don't mind me, I can do the accent. It's, Mia, I'm in the Quebec a lot, and after the while, you pick up the accent. No? Now, can everyone hear me? I had a woman come up one time, and she said, "You were so funny." I couldn't hear a word you said, but you were so funny. Like, I guess she saw everyone laughing, and she figured, how bad can she be? So this is great. I don't usually wear these socks. Like, I don't know if you can see them, but like I didn't bring any long pants, and they end here, and then this part was cold, so I found a nice pair of woolies. But please don't put that on the video, just from the knees. Don't want to ruin my fashionable reputation. Yeah. I haven't worn this. I feel like my brain is being probed by aliens. Like, I've just got this thing around I usually use a handheld. Yeah. So what's the farthest away anyone's come tonight? All right, then. Sandbanks. So my dear friends, Bill and Marianne and Laura Lee are here from Sandbanks. Stand up, stand up, stand up. They surprised me. I met them when I was touring, like 10 years ago. Went to Sandbanks, and I've done several events at their church, Emmanuel. And so, my name's Wendy. My last name's Farha, like I told you last night. How many people were not here last night? We're not here. Oh, I can do some more jokes that did last. Yeah, like I can do the jokes again. And the rest of you are older, so you don't remember anyway. So, yeah. Come on, admit it. You know, you go and you introduce someone, and you've known them like 30 years, and you go, "This is my dear friend, blank." Has that happened to you? Like brain freeze, you know? And you're like, "I have no idea who this person is." And he said, "I'm your husband." Oh, right, yeah. And so, you know, and then you're going into rooms and you don't remember why, and you have to go back to the original room so that you remember. So I walked into a room the other day, and I remembered why I was there. I was so proud of myself. It was a bathroom, but, you know, small steps, small steps. Yay, Wendy. There's the toilet. There's the clue. Yeah. So I go to a lot of Tim Hortons. I think I've been to maybe 200. I don't know. Like, I've gone to the Maritimes, and I've gone to BC, and everywhere in between. Never been to Newfoundland. Any Newfies here? Yay! Wow, that's fun. So do you want me to speak slower so you can No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. You guys have an amazing sense of humor. Anybody on CBC is a comedian, is usually from Newfoundland. So, yeah, so I go to a lot of Tim Hortons. I don't like coffee. Someone just got the joke? You're like, oh, I get it. Yeah. It goes in waves, you know. Like, there's the first lot, they laugh, and then there's their friends going, I don't get it. And then they explain it, and then there's a second wave, and then the third wave. I'm not sure. Anyway. So I go in a lot of Tim Hortons. I don't like coffee, but I love going to Tim's because of the bathrooms, because I figure they're all equally dirty, so at least I know what to expect. No, they're not dirty, but, you know. So, yeah, so I was in a Tim's in Napanee, and this lady came into the stall I think it was a lady. Yeah, because it was late. Well, yeah. Anyway, it was a stall beside me, and this lady came in, and she said, "Hi." And I'm like, oh, wow, because Montreal, you don't really talk much. You know, it's weird if someone says hi. But in the smaller towns, and, you know, I said, "Oh, friendly hi." And she says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know. Isn't it obvious? I'm in the bathroom. And I said, "Oh, the usual." I thought that was a good answer. And then she said, "Would you like to have a coffee after?" And I said, "Sure." I thought, this is so friendly. And then she said, "I'm going to have to call you back. There's some weirdo in the stall beside me, and she thinks I'm talking to her." You know, so. That was really awkward. I should have said, "Well, I'm going to have to call you back because some weirdo thinks I'm a weirdo who thinks that I..." So just to clear that up, that is a joke, because someone came up to me a year after I did something at their church, and she said, "I've been telling everyone what happened to you at the Tim's in Ottawa." And I said, "You know that was a joke, right?" And she's like, oh. She's thinking of all the people now she has to correct, yeah. So my friend Billy, he's really naughty. And
he wanted a bike for Christmas, and he asked his mom, and she said, no, you can't have a bike for Christmas, but you could, because you're naughty, but you could ask God. So he went up in his room, and he got a purple crayon, and he wrote a letter to God, and he said, dear God, if you give me a bike for Christmas, I'll be a good boy 1 whole month. But he can't, because he's a rotten little kid. So he crumpled it up a letter, and he started another letter. Dear God, if you give me a bike for Christmas, I'll be a good boy 1 whole week. And he can't, because he's a rotten little kid. So he crumpled it up and said, forget this. And he ran down the stairs really fast, and he went under the Christmas tree. And he got his mom's nativity scene with Joseph and Mary and the baby Jesus in the manger. And then he ran back upstairs and he hid all of them under the bed. And then he started another letter. Dear God, if you ever want to see your family again, you better give me that bike. Yeah, so I wrote a song a few years ago, and it was based on a Reader's Digest article called What Children Say About God. So I thought it would make a good song. It's called the Children's Song. It's really original. Yeah. Is my guitar on? Can you hear it? Yeah. Someone was asking me what my music this afternoon, what my music is like. I said, you know Ozzy Osbourne, Alice Cooper? Well, it's nothing like that. So. Where do I catch the train to go to heaven? Will I play a harp in the sky? Does my mansion in heaven have a bathtub? Will my wings hold me up when I fly? Whee! Does God go to sleep in the nighttime? Does he like to watch Sesame Street? Big Bird! Does he like to play softball and soccer? Did the disciples eat Kentucky Fried Chicken? Did they watch cartoons on TV? Bugs Bunny. Did they rollerblade in the desert? Did they go caroling on Christmas Eve? Singing Gloria. I have to go to the bathroom. Don't clap yet, there's still one more verse. Yeah. Did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? Did they feel a little cold with nothing on? Did the animals play in their garden? Was there a pooper scooper law to save their lawn? I don't know. Where do I catch the train to go to heaven? Woo woo! Will I play a harp in the sky? Tra-la-la! Does my mansion in heaven have a bathtub? Rubber ducky! Will my wings hold me up when I fly? Will my wings hold me up when I fly? Bye! Yeah. This little kid was in Sunday school, and the teacher said, "What do you think Jesus said when Lazarus came out of the tomb after being dead for 3 days?" And a little kid said, "Ta-da!" Yeah. So I was doing some stuff in Montreal, and so it was the Boy Scouts, and it was their annual, what is his name, Baden Powell Day. So I was doing something for the kids. And then the next year I had cancer, and so I said, I have cancer. I lost all my hair. I want to see, and I lifted up my wig, and they're like, wow. I said, but I'm not afraid, because my life is in God's hands, and when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. It's a true story. A little kid puts up his hand. Yeah, but don't you have an expiration date? It's like, I didn't expire. I said, what? I thought you had an expiration date. So he came up to me at the CD table after. He goes, my mother says I have to say I'm sorry. I said, why do you have to say you're sorry? I don't know. She said I was rude. I said, I forgive you. He goes, thanks. So, yeah. So a lot of you older men tonight, it's good to see you. I guess some of you used to be Head and Shoulders. Now you're Mop and Glow.
Yeah, yeah. Little halo there, yeah. This little boy went to school and he came home and he said to his mom,
I got a part in the school play.
she said, that's wonderful, sweetheart. What part did you get? He said, I got the part of the husband. No, no, no. She says, you go back to school tomorrow. You tell them you want a speaking part. That always takes a minute, yeah. Yeah. So this couple, this older couple, I'll tell some old people jokes. Is that okay? I mean, I know I look 40, but I'm actually 64. This is where you, really? Really? That's not very convincing. So anyway, these two older couples went out and they came back and the wives went in to make the tea and the men were sitting in the living room. One said, you know, I took my wife to a really nice restaurant last week. And the other one said, oh, I'd like to take my wife there too. He says, what's the name of it? Oh, he says, now what was the name of it? He says, what's that flower with, it's red and it's got a stem and there's thorns. And the other one said, oh yeah, it starts with an R, yeah, Rose. He goes, yeah. Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to last week? Yeah. So this 83-year-old lady was getting married for the first time. So sweet. They said, what are you going to wear on your wedding day? She said, pardon? They said, what are you going to wear on your wedding day? She said, oh, it depends. Yeah. So I sang a song once, and this woman bumped into me in the shopping center 3 years later, and after I got up, because she bumped into me, get it? No. And she said, are you the one who did the menopause song 3 years ago? I said, yes. She said, you made me pee my pants. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, or thank you. Anyway, I know it is I hope I'm not being too indelicate here, but I know it is a problem with some women that as we age, you know, when you laugh a lot, sometimes you leak a little bit. So I brought some along, just, it's for the ladies. Because I see some of you laughing, and it's like, oh, sorry. That's all. I just missed you. There's only 3 you'll have to share. So, and they are quite expensive, so if you don't use them, if you could bring them back at the end, that would be great, because I started out a tour a little while ago with a full bag, and as you can see, like, some people just, they take them home. So some of you ladies, so how many people have older children, adult children? Okay, like 5? Like, are you lying or no? Come on, how many of you have adult children? Yeah, okay. How many of you have adult children that don't call as often? Never mind. They don't call you as often as you'd like. So ladies, because you're better at giving guilt, next time they call, you can try this method. I've heard it's very effective. They'll call and you'll go, hello. And they'll say, Ma, is that you? And you say, yes. And they'll say, are you sick? And you say, no, I'm just very weak. They'll say, why are you so weak? And you'll say, I haven't eaten in 3 months. They'll say, why haven't you eaten in 3 months? And then you say, I didn't want my mouth to be full in case you should call me. Yeah. Yep, I've heard it works. So, how would you feel about me singing about menopause? I see you connect very strongly with that subject. Are you hot right now? Yeah, you're cold, yeah. So let's hear from some other people. Sure. Can I sing? What do you think, Pastor Bert? Yeah, Pastor Bert doesn't know what to say. Let's have a vote. How many think I should sing the menopause song? Oh, it's not overwhelming vote, yeah. If I don't sing it tonight, I'll sing it tomorrow, so. Men, you can just block your ears, or, you don't listen anyway, do you? I don't know. No, I'm not. I was doing a show in Northern Ontario, and you don't realize when the person's up here, they see everything. Like I saw you. You know who you are. You just picked your nose. No, I'm just kidding. No, but you can see everything. And there was this guy in the back row, and he's like literally did this. He put his arm around his wife. I said, 10 more minutes, sir. And he's like, and I said, your wife made you come, didn't she? And he was. Menopause, menopause. Don't you gotta love that menopause? Menopause, menopause. I'm going crazy. All because first I'm hot and then I'm cold. Feels as though I'm getting old. All because of menopause. Is this okay, Al, that I'm singing this? What do you think as a pastor? Al thinks it's okay, all right? Bert's not sure, but Al thinks it's okay. If you see me sweating bullets, it's not 'cause I am afraid. If I seem a little grouchy, you're not the one to blame. If I seem a little giddy, on this you can depend. I'm probably so ecstatic 'cause I just lost my monthly friend. Menopause, everybody clap. Menopause, menopause. Don't you gotta love that menopause? Come on, Bert. Menopause, menopause. I'm going crazy. All because first I'm hot and then I'm cold. Feels as though I'm getting old. All because he's still not clapping. Pause. Okay, stop. I never thought I'd see the day when I'd turned 49. My kids were raised, my job was great, and I was doing fine. Until one day, lest I forget, when I awoke all drenched in sweat, right? And since then, life has not been the same, and those darn hormones are to blame. And you clap. Menopause, menopause. Don't you gotta love that menopause? Menopause, menopause. I am going crazy. All because first I'm hot, and then I'm cold. Feels as though I'm getting old. All because of menopause. And stop. My husband can't quite understand what's gotten into me. First I'm happy, then I'm sad, and other days I'm fighting mad. Some nights I'm in the mood for love, and we'll have lots of fun. And then my hormones shift, and whoops, I wish I was a nun. And you clap. Menopause, menopause. Don't you gotta love that menopause? Menopause, menopause. I'm going crazy. Come on, Gary. First I'm hot, then I'm cold. Feels as though I'm getting old. All because of men. Oh, don't you just love those men? Oh, all because of men. Oh, pause. Oh, ah. All right, so Bert's going to dismiss those of you who are absolutely disgusted at this point and thought you were coming to a Holy Spirit-filled meeting. And then we'll get, no. So, yeah, I do have a serious side. I left it in Quebec, but, yeah. So, there we go. So, yeah, I just thought I would sing. I do have some serious songs, and so here's one of them. I wrote it way back in 1982 when I was 5. Been a lot of places, seen tired and empty faces, and I've witnessed what the power of sin can do. But I've seen hearts that have been changed and lives so rearranged, and I know they owe it all to you. And I've seen stubborn, lonely lives. I've seen husbands and wives who can't seem to keep the love that once was theirs. But I've seen people come to know just how much you love them so, and to realize they owe it all to you. If my life can be of use to direct someone to you, then my life on earth will somehow be worthwhile. And if by singing them a song their belief has helped along, may I realize I owe it all to you. And I've seen happy times and sad, but the best times that I've had have been the times when you revealed yourself to me. You have made me so aware that none other can compare, and everything I am is all because of you. And if my life can be of use to direct someone to you, then my life on earth will somehow be worthwhile. If by singing them a song their belief has helped along, may I realize I owe it all to you. May I realize I owe it all to you. Jesus, thou art wonderful in mine eyes. Jesus, thou art magnificent in mine eyes. I long to tell people how it used to be. I long to tell them how you set me free. I long to pledge myself eternally to thee. Sometimes tears fill these eyes, and my voice suddenly subsides. All I can do is pray they'll see you in me. They'll see you in me. O God, thou art mighty in mine eyes. O God, thou art eternal in mine eyes. I long to tell people how it used to be. I long to thank you for your endless mercy. I long to pledge myself eternally to thee. Sometimes tears fill these eyes, and my voice suddenly subsides. All I can do is pray they'll see you in me. They'll see you in me. Ah, ah. Thank you. Well, thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself. I was born at a very young age in Montreal, and my parents had met late in life, and they married when my mom was 41 and my dad was 40. And then about a year later, my dad turned to my mom and he said, "So, how about a baby?" And she's like, "A baby?" Like they didn't think to discuss that before, because my mom assumed no, and my dad assumed hope so. So yeah, then I was born, and my dad said, "Isn't this amazing?" And my mom said, "Yeah, we're not doing that again." So that was really hard. So yeah, so I'm an only child. In French, we say un enfant unique, right? I'm a unique child, yes. And so my parents, their marriage was really rocky, and they didn't get along well at all. And so there was always this stress in the home. There wasn't a lot of fighting. There was just this silence that, you know, you were just always tiptoeing And so in our first house, my mom had her bed and my dad had his bed. And then when we moved, when I was 8, she had her room and he had his room and I had my room. And there was just not a lot of interaction. I just sort of found out last summer, par hasard, I say in French, but kind of by chance, speaking to a counselor, that I had childhood trauma because we were talking, and I said, I don't remember a Christmas before I was 30, and I don't remember any birthdays before I was in my 30s, and I don't remember sitting around the table as a family, and I was with a Christian life coach, and he said, that's trauma, and I'm like, oh, and like a whole bunch of pieces fell into place. It's like, wow. So anyway, I started walking dogs, just as a way of escape. And so I kind of basically, some people say I was raised by wolves. I was raised by dogs. So I only liked big dogs. No offense. But I liked the big ones when I was little, I guess, so they could protect me. So I walked the Airedale, and then I'd walk the German Shepherd, and then I'd walk the Irish Setter, and then the Bull Mastiff. And so when I was 13, someone invited me to a Christian youth group, and that's where I heard that the Lord Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, and I could have a relationship with him. And then the speaker said, who wants to accept Jesus and go to heaven? I said, oh, that sounds like a good deal. So I put up my hand. And then I realized, there's a cost, but that was not presented to me. And so I saw all these kids in my school trying drugs and drinking and, sleeping around, and I thought, oh, that looks like fun. So I said to the Lord, I'll be right back. And so went and tried that. And whenever I didn't have a cute boyfriend, I would come back and say, oh, Lord, I love you so much. Oh, he's cute. Just a minute. And then I would, back and forth for 5 years. And then when I was 18, I kind of hit rock bottom. My parents separated when I was 17. And so I started following the Lord at 18. And I prayed that I said, God, I don't know if you're 100% if you're real, but if you are, show yourself to me. And there were a few things that happened. The Bible came alive, but one of the things was I started writing songs. It was just like they would just start pouring into me. And so I started singing in churches and hospitals, and I started doing prison ministry, because if they don't like your music in prison, where are they going to go? Right? So you get a lot of practice. And then I started singing in palliative care wards, and again, if they don't like it, it's like they're ringing the nurse's bell, and I cut that before I sang. So then in my 20s, somebody who was a professional counselor, she said, I think you should be on meds, because my emotions were all kind of over the place. And I said, no, I'm just artistic and sensitive. But then I got into my 30s, and there was all kinds of depression and emotional. I was very emotionally draining and needy, and nobody wanted to be my friend because I would just latch onto them and just and I didn't know really, because I'd been raised by dogs. So I didn't really know how to have healthy friendships. And I still don't, but, I don't have a dog either. It's really pathetic. So anyway, I'll get a fish. So anyway, then in my 30s, someone said, I think you should be on meds. And I said, no, I'm just artistic and sensitive. Why can't they understand this? And then I got married at 37. And I always say, if you have a predisposition for mental illness, getting married will bring it right to the surface. So, yeah. One guy out west, he was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And his wife was sitting right beside him. So that was awkward. I think he lay on the couch that night and slept on the couch. So we got along really well for about 10 minutes. And then the marriage just kind of started spiraling. And so at 39, I became actively suicidal, because I knew Christians don't divorce, So I thought, well, I can't divorce, so I'll kill myself. They'll save that problem, And so I'm going to poke fun at some stuff tonight, but I want you to know that I don't think cancer is particularly funny. It's a horrible disease, and suicide is obviously awful. As I told you last night, my former husband killed himself 4 months ago, so it's very fresh. But I became actively suicidal. So one day I wrote a suicide note, and I left it on the table, and I went down to the St. Lawrence River. We lived 2 blocks away from. And some of the people in our neighborhood had killed themselves that way. You jump in La Salle, Quebec, and then they find you 3 weeks later in Pointe-aux-Trembles. So the current is very fast, and you don't last long. It's very cold. And so I stood on the rocks, and I was just screaming at God in my heart. It's like, where is this abundant life that you promise? You know, he said, we have abundant life, and I don't have an abundant life. And it's embarrassing when you're depressed and you know you're supposed to share the gospel, you know. And it's like, you should accept Jesus and then you'll be happy like me, you know. And it's embarrassing, so you kind of want to create this double life where you're like, everything's great. And I've actually talked to, you know, Christians all over the place and to pastors. You know, pastors have a very, not you maybe, not you, but, you know, other pastors. No, but pastors have a very high rate of depression because they have to deal with us. Like, you know, look at around and you'll understand, you know. It's like, I mean, you're okay, but the person next to you is like, oh, no. Amen. No, that's your wife beside you. No, don't. No. That doesn't always work. And that, yeah. So, but, you know, people have a very high, you know, like there's Jesus, and then there's the pastor, you know, sometimes. Like they want him to be even better than Jesus, and it's like nobody can live up to that. So I mean, I've talked to pastors who are on meds, but they won't tell their congregations. One pastor told me, well, I can't tell them because they'll fire me. You know? Like if you're on insulin, you're okay as a pastor, but if you're on antidepressants, you're like, eh. It's really sad. That's a stigma that's still, I'm not outing you. I'm not going to tell them about your antidepressants, but you know, I saw the jar in the medicine cabinet. M&Ms. Just kidding. It's him that's on them. No. I have my spies. They went into your house. Big bottle. Yeah. Buy 3 months, get one free. No. I don't know anything about anyone. And if I do in this congregation, I forgot. So I know Marianne and Bill, and I'm not going to tell their secrets, right? Yeah. And so I didn't have the courage to jump in to the river, and I came home and I ripped up my suicide note, and I'm like, you know, I can't even kill myself properly. Like, I'm such a loser. I knew I had these gifts in me, and I hadn't been doing the comedy, but I knew I had the singing gift. Of course, launching an English ministry in French Quebec is kind of a challenge. So a year later, I just sort of had a meltdown, and my husband was away for 2 weeks. I was alone in the house, and I called Info Suicide. And again, I'm not making fun of suicide, but it was just, this only happens to me. I called Info Suicide, and it's a hotline for people who are suicidal, and she said yes, and I said, I just need to talk to somebody. And she goes, okay, madame, you speak French? And I'm like, no, I don't speak. Okay, I put you on hold, okay? And so she put me on hold. And so I'm crying there, and she comes back, she says, madame, nobody here speaks English. You call back tomorrow? And it's like, like, I can't get a break, right? So, I mean, it's not their fault. They just understaffed. So I called a few other people, and they said, you know, you should go to the Douglas, which is a mental hospital. I'm like, I'm not mental. Like, I'm just depressed. So I ended up in the emergency of the psychiatric hospital, the Douglas. And they charge you for parking. Like, really? Yeah, you're having a breakdown. It's like, that'll be $4, please. You know, it's like, if you don't have $4, not your day. So so I went in, and the door, just like in prison ministry, the door slams behind you, and that's what it was like. The door slammed and locked behind me, and it was like, and then I was sitting there for 2 hours with a guy, you know, in emotional distress and mental distress. And I was like, but I'm not mental, you know, I'm not mentally ill. So I saw a psychiatrist, and he diagnosed me with clinical depression and gave me this prescription, which I went home and almost ripped up because I thought Christians shouldn't need this. So you see, like if you have cancer and you're on chemo, nobody goes, oh, you should not be on chemo, you know, or if you're on insulin, or many of you here are wearing glasses, you know, nobody comes, oh, you should just trust Jesus for better eyesight. But the minute it's north of the ears, for some reason, because people mix up the brain and the mind. So the brain is the actual organ. It's an organ. Can an organ malfunction? You know, like when people have dementia, is it their liver that's malfunctioning? It's their brain. And so nobody says, you know, if you just trusted Jesus more, you wouldn't forget so much. Nobody says that. But for people with mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, panic attacks, whatever, some of those things originate in the brain. And so I guess God picked the right person. Not that he picked me to have depression, but I just decided as I started going through this journey that I was going to be vocal about it, because as you've noticed, I like to talk. And I just thought, why not? Maybe I can be an advocate. Maybe I can help other people by being open about it. And so I went on the meds, and the doctor said, within 3 weeks, you'll feel better. You'll feel like, and so my last name, Farha, my grandparents are from Damascus, Syria. So Farha means, yeah, See, they listened last night. The rest of you just like, what? No. Yeah. No, so Farha means joy, and here I was, like, not joyful. And so 3 weeks after I started taking the meds, I woke up and I had Farha. And it was like, oh, wow. Like I felt like, I know there's a buzzword in this day and age, the best version of myself. But I felt like something had been turned on, which basically is what happens, is serotonin reuptake. And so I just felt like, wow. And so after a little while, I thought, I guess I don't need them anymore. I feel so great. So I went off them. And he had never told me not to cold turkey off of antidepressants, off of the SSRIs. So I went back down into this horrible pit. And then I went back on them. And so as I've talked to people with mental health issues, like, it's very common. You go on the meds, off the meds. And you're on the meds, you can gain weight, you get dry mouth, your libido can go down. Can I say libido in camp? Well, I just did. So, and it's on tape, So, but I mean, I don't think it's bad. Song of Solomon, people. It's in the Bible. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to stay on these. And then as a supplement to the meds, I started, kind of joking around and using jokes in the, like, maybe 2 or 3 times a year I would sing. I would throw in a joke or two. And people said, you're really funny. And I'm like, really? And so that's how the comedy got started. And then we separated in 2008, and then we got back together, and then we separated in 2009. And then I hit 50. We don't say I turned 50, we say hit 50. We never say I hit 20, we hit 50. And I was at a Red Lobster in Brantford, Ontario, and I had just turned 50, and I saw on the menu, it's like senior citizens discount 10%. And I said, oh, Sue, look, 10%. I wonder how old, because it used to be 65 and then 60 and 60. So I called the waitress over. I said, how old do you have to be a senior? You know what she said to me? Oh, you're okay. Thank you. Don't you love it when you're 40 and you go to a store and they go, do you have your senior's card? And you're like, what? So anyway, now I'm used to it. Now it's like, yeah, bring it on. Discount. And so train just got derailed. Where was I? 50. I hit 50. And so I thought, I'm 50 years old. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I used to ask kids, like, what do you want to be? Fireman. Oh, maybe I could be a fireman. I was looking for ideas, campaigning. And I just thought, well, maybe I'd felt a call to missions. And so I thought, maybe I'll go back into missions. I had done Youth with a Mission, YWAM, and I had gone overseas for a year with Operation Mobilization to work with Muslims. And so I thought, maybe I'll get back into that. So I thought, where do people go to be missionaries? Like Cambodia, like hot countries. So I chose Hawaii. And you people are very judgmental. Yeah. So. Lying on the beach all the time, that can be very depressing. So I was there. I was going to go and help them. So Youth with a Mission has what do they call it? What's it called? Youth with a Mission. Somebody help me. Do you not know? University of the Nations. Thank you for that help. University of the Nations, and so I was going to go there, and I was going to teach English to overseas people. Came in so they could go back and get better jobs and stuff. And so the guy at YWAM said, well, make sure that you have all your medical tests done, because we have a hard time getting affordable doctors here. So I said, oh yeah. I saw that yawn. It's okay. I'm going to be finished soon. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I realized, I'm 6 months overdue on my mammogram. So then I went to get it done, and the doctor's like, oh, we see something, but it's probably nothing. And then I had the ultrasound. Oh, it's probably nothing. And then I had the biopsy, and it's like, oh, that's something. And so I said, should I still book my flight? And he goes, no, I wouldn't. It's 30% chance that it's not cancer, but it's 70% that it is. And so I thought, I'd already had many lumps in my porridge, in my lumps. And so I had trained myself, because it was never cancer. So I trained myself. It's not cancer. And so they called me a week later, and they go, you have cancer. And so I went in, had the double mastectomy, because I'm the 11th cancer in my family. So my mom had it 4 times. 2 of those were breast cancer. Her sister had it 4 times. 2 of those were breast. My cousin died of it. My dad died of it. So the whole family's dead. And so I thought, well, I guess I'll go for the double mastectomy. We don't want to go conservative. So I had the, I call it my corporate downsizing. The, double. And not making fun of cancer, but, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So woke up and the doctor said it's good news. It hasn't spread. I'm like, I'm going to Hawaii to be a missionary. He's like, you're so weird. And so, yeah. And so came back a month later to get the checkup, and he says, oops, we made a mistake. It's spread. I'm like, yeah, great. So 4 days later, I was getting more lymph nodes removed, and he said, yeah, it's really aggressive. We're going to have to hit you with everything. So 28 sessions of radiation and 14 sessions of chemo and a parallel year of a drug called Herceptin and 3 minor surgeries and 3 major surgeries. And while I was going through that, they scanned me, and they said, we see a spot on your lung and one on your spine. And so sometimes when breast cancer spreads, it goes to brain, bones, lungs, liver. So he said, the lung and the spine, it's so I said, so what do you do for that? Do you cut it out, like apple core? You just kind of, and he's like, no, my oncologist is sitting there looking really uncomfortable. And I said, do you? He says, no. And I said, oh, so it's like I could be terminal? And he goes, yeah, like if it's spread, then there's nothing we can do, but we can keep you comfortable. I said, I'm comfortable enough. Like I don't need you to make me comfortable. So I went home and I was like, wow. And I said, when will you know? He says, well, we won't be able to tell for 2 years. I'm like, so I have to go around 2 years not knowing if I'm dying or not? And he's like, am I hearing you right? And he goes, yeah, sorry. So I went home and I was like, wow, well, have you ever had like theology that doesn't match your behavior, Like you love each other. Oh, sometimes your theology's over here and then your actual behavior it's not matching. Like it's not matching. So, it's like, oh, if you accept Jesus into your heart, you will go to heaven when you die. And then the doctor says, so glad you believe that because you're going in a week. And you're like, no, I don't want to go to heaven. It's beautiful there. I want to stay here where there's taxes and death and bad roads and Justin Trudeau. No. So I thought, okay, I'm a Christian, so why am I acting like death is some horrible thing? Because if you watch TV programs, when someone's about to die, the music ramps up, and everyone's like, oh, we got to save this person, and like 10 minutes before they were in a ditch, nobody cared about them, but they might die, and so the culture shapes us, and when you go to a funeral home, everything's behind the curtain kind of thing, so it's very mysterious. Unless you live on a farm and then you see life and death all the time. But for us city folks, it's like, ugh. And so I said, I have to match my theology with my behavior. And it's like, okay. So I came to terms with it. And I said, you know what? If I die, I die. I said, the problem is if I live, because I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I said to the Lord, I said, well, but I felt like he had been prepping me for something for all through my 40s, even in the middle of a miserable marriage. And I just felt like the year before I was diagnosed, the Lord was telling me to start, being more positive. And so when I got, diagnosed, I said, well, let's have fun with cancer. Let's see where. But I really was expecting God to do something interesting because I felt like there was something going on spiritually. You ever had that? I feel like, God's doing something even though everything stinks. And so I started my chemo, all my hair fall out. I tell you, I was walking down the chemo ward and I felt this sense of gratitude that I got the opportunity and the privilege to speak into the lives of people who were also on chemo. Because I was cracking jokes and, having fun. I don't know why. God just gave me that grace. You might not have that. I mean, I might go through something and not have that joy, and you might have it in that same circumstance, and then I might have joy. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can glide through trials, and it's like, wow, this is really amazing. And sometimes people are praying for you, and it's like, wow, this doesn't even feel hard. And then other times it's like really, really hard, and you don't feel the presence of God at all. But that wasn't this. This was just like, wow, this is like kind of fun. And I would joke, and people would go, how come you're so happy when you have cancer and you could be dying? And it's like, I don't know. Might be Jesus. And then this out of the blue, this woman calls me, and she says, would you like to be in my film? And I'm like, what film? She says, well, I'm making a film. It's called Beauty and the Breast. Is it Beauty and the Beast? No, Beauty and the Breast. And it's about 9 Quebec women diagnosed with breast cancer. And she said, everyone in the movie's crying. And she said, I heard you were funny. I need a comedian in my movie. I'm like, say no more. So I said yes, and the film crew came to the oncology ward with me, and they followed me when I was getting my chemo. And so you have to picture this. There's the microphone with the fuzzy mic and the camera guy and the lighting and the director and the assistant director and still, like it's a crew. And they're all like, who is that? It must be a celebrity. And I'm like, I'm Julia Roberts with a face transplant. Yeah. It was like, I don't know, I couldn't understand why I was enjoying being, well, I guess I knew. It's because I was the center of attention, right? Like, pray for me. So, do you have that movie clip ready? Well, I just happen to have a clip of the movie. Would you like to see it? Oh. I'm giving autographs after in the corner. $40, 60 for two. So, yeah. So we did the movie. I said, you should find out where my joy comes from. Come to church. So the whole film crew came to church. And it went on for and then it didn't do like super well. It was in a couple of cinemas, but it's not like, hey, let's go watch a cancer movie. It's not. I couldn't compete with Indiana Jones. So, but it did well in the film festivals, and it won some awards and stuff. So God was so good. He prepared me in the year before by teaching me that I needed to be more optimistic, more positive, and then the boom fell, and so 2 years later, 2 years passed, and then got the news that I was in remission. And during that 2 years, I just thought deeply about what do I want to do. I just realized it was 2 years of my life, and then COVID was 2 years of lockdown. So it's interesting. So it was this time of self-examination, and it gave me time to say, okay, Lord, where are you directing me? And it's almost like the Lord said, well, what do you want to do? Have you ever heard the saying, love God and do as you please? Like, it sounds wrong when you first say it until you explain it. If you love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, then whatever you're going to do is not going to be sinful. You're not going to go, oh, I think I'll go get drunk tonight. When you love him, the desires, he says, he gives you the desires of your heart. Well, when you read that in Psalm, I think it's 34, trust in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. It's not saying that, if you want a Cadillac or whatever, it's when you trust in the Lord and when you're fully surrendered to him, then your desires are being purified. So then it's safe. You don't have to sit and agonize, like, oh, I don't know where God's leading. There might be a season of that, but sometimes people are like, well, I'm just waiting to feel led to do whatever. And it's like, how long have you been waiting? Oh, 20 years. And it's like, well, maybe you have lead poisoning. You're waiting to feel led. And, like you pray about something, and then you're like, well, what, if you love children, then don't go off and work in a farm, by yourself. So I was like, well, what do I love to do? I love God. I love him with all my heart. I want to serve him. What would I love to do? I thought I'd love to get in my car, drive all over the place, sing, do comedy, cheer people up, encourage them, tell my testimony, and teach the word, and just share. If you don't like women teaching, share. Well, you've brought me in as a speaker, so I guess you don't have a problem with it. But you have to use code words when you're around certain. I share, yeah, share my testimony. I'm preaching. I'm sharing, yeah. So, and that's what I really wanted to do. And so, it's like God said, yeah. When your child is about to do something wrong, do you give them the look? Okay, so sometimes you want to do something. And if you were to picture God looking at you, what do you think he'd be doing right then? If you're going to do something, it's sin. And yes, that's right. You're just like, oh. The Lord is like, and then sometimes you want to do something, it's not really good, it's not really bad, it's just, I'm going to spend like $15,000 on a hot tub. And it's like, and you kind of picture God's face, and he's like, sometimes I picture him saying, is that the best you can do? Like, there's people starving, and, we got Matt over in Cambodia. He could probably use, 1,000 or 14,000 of that, And then there's other times where you say, what would you think of me doing this, Lord? And he's like, that's my girl. That's my girl. That's my man. You go do that. You do it in my name. And he's looking for people. He's looking for people because it says in the word, the lies of the Lord. You saw me doing sign language as an interpreter for 20 years. The eyes of the Lord roam to and fro throughout the whole earth, looking for those whose hearts are fully his. If he's not Lord of all, he's not Lord at all. Don't buy into the fact that you've given him 5 rooms of your house, but you're keeping the 6th for yourself. It doesn't exist in Christianity. You're his disciple or you're not. Jesus was walking and Peter was following. Do you remember where? At a distance. You know, there's a lot of room between Jesus and the disciple that follows at a distance. There's a lot of room for sin. There's a lot of room for distraction. There's a lot of room for a woman who had a mission call to go and marry a man who had mental illness and had no call on missions. And that's 25 years of my life. And I know God can use that. But for you young people, you're at a crucial point in your life where you're making decisions and you think, you know, if I sleep with that guy, nobody's going to know. And it's really not going to make that much of a difference in my life. And if I go and do this, and if I go and get drunk and then I drive home, it's really not going to hurt anybody. Like, these are crucial. If you looked around at some of the adults, and I hope some of you adults would be vulnerable enough to open your hearts and share some of your stories and some of your mistakes with young people. I know it's scary sometimes, but if you knew that you could prevent a young person from doing what you did, would you share the story? Would you be willing to do that? Because sometimes that's what, you know, we're like, oh, yes, I married my husband, everything was great. And you know you married an unbeliever, but you don't want to out yourself, and so you don't warn that person. Don't do it. Don't. And some of you, like we had a young man at Sydenham Holiness Camp. He's in a wheelchair. He walked away from the Lord. And does anyone know that story? He was in a drunk driving accident. He's paralyzed, and he's come back to the Lord, but a very high cost. And so, you know, I'm willing to let God use my mistakes, my side, you know, my distractions, and like bring it and help me to minister to other people so they don't make those same mistakes. So if you're following Jesus at a distance, there's a lot of room for error. But when you're close to his heart, like John, and you lean your head on his breast, and then you say, well, Lord, what do you think of if I did this? And you just sense the Lord's pleasure. And so here's Marianne, and she was driving by one day, and she saw the migrant workers. And how did that start? You just saw, hey, they don't have bikes, right? They couldn't. Bare feet. Yeah. So she started a backpacker ministry. Did she have to fast and pray for 5 years before she did that? It's like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I'll bless a bunch of people. And then she got them bikes. And then. And so how many now a year? About 50 backpacks a year? 30? 65 this year. Yeah. It's right under your nose sometimes. And it's like, well, I'll just have to pray about this, you know. And Bill, he's always helping people, and they took me in when I was struggling. They took me into their home many times and encouraged me and ministered to me because that's what I was, you know, fragile. And they invested. They invest in people. They spend thousands of hours in marriage ministry. Am I embarrassing you yet? Thousands of hours investing in people, and they're just sitting there quietly and humbly. And so this is what God wants. He's looking for you to invest in other people, to invest in young people, to come alongside that young person and go, I know you think you love the dude, but it's not going to end well. I mean, they probably won't listen to you, but then they can't say nobody told them, you know. And so I've just been thrilled to see how, as the closer and closer I get to the Lord, how he uses my stuff. So your mess can become your message. Your test can become your testimony. Your woes can become your wows. And your misery can become your ministry. Want me to repeat it? Your test can become your testimony. Your mess can become your message. Your woes can become your wows. And your misery can become your ministry. And that is my experience. After so many years, since 2009, I got a pain in my foot. In January, I started having problems walking, and so found out a few weeks ago that I had a lesion on the bottom of the bone, and it's like, what's going on? And now is this cancer again? And so driving back and forth from Montreal, from Wakefield, north of Ottawa, and so found out, like I told some of you last night, found out 2 hours before I drove here yesterday that it was benign, but, you know, had to go through it again. Am I ready to die? Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready, like any time, Lord, because my life is in your hands. And my money is in your hands, and my gifts are in your hands, and everything is in your hands. And so it's up to him. And then with, you know, my former husband, we finally separated, and we're moving toward divorce. And then we lost our house, and he's taken his life, and it's just this grief. What if I had done this differently? What if I'd been kinder? So we bring all of our burdens and our cares and our talents and our woes and our misery to the Lord, and we lay them down. Corrie ten Boom said once, remember, you all know where Corrie ten Boom and her family hid Jews during the war, Second World War. They were discovered. Corrie's father and sister died in the camps, and she was released on a clerical error. They released her. Did you know that? They made a mistake in the number that was tattooed. They released her, and then the week after, they killed all those people in her age group. So miraculous, she was released, and then she ended up touring the world. And she said, sometimes you look at a piece of embroidery and it's all just, strands and threads, and you're like, that's messy. And then you turn it over and there's the pattern. And so when we're on earth, sometimes we just see the threads. But when we get to heaven, and sometimes even before, like I can look down on my life now and it's lots of regrets, but beautiful pattern, beautiful pattern. He's weaving your life into a pattern if you let him. If you wallow in self-pity, no, it's still messy. But if you surrender it to him and you say, I'm going to let the Lord use this, and so when I was doing the chemo, I said to my oncologist, I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to do concerts, and I want to do one now. And he said, no, don't do one now, because he said, you're on chemo, and so that compromises your immune system. You be around people, you get sick, it'll delay your chemo, so don't do the concert. So I did the concert, and I'm such a rebel. And I asked the Lord, to give me a song, because I knew there would be a lot of non-Christians there. And I was really tired on chemo, so I walked around the block. That's all I had energy for. And he gave me this song in 10 or 20 minutes, called Love Laid a Hold Upon Me. I never was one to gaze up at the stars and wonder what lay far beyond. My feet were so firmly planted on earth, no reason to think where I'd be when I'm gone. But lately I find myself thinking of things I never imagined could be. Yes, all this has changed my life since I am free, since love laid a hold on me. Love laid a hold on me, every part of me, every part that you see. I can't explain it, but oh, I am proof there's someone much bigger than me. And the peace that I know, the touch of his grace, the reason you see so much joy on my face. If I try to explain it, well, all I can say, love laid a hold on me, love laid a hold on me. Backup singer. What life would be like if things were beyond my control. Then in an instant reality changed, troubled it threatened my soul. When the clouds are so dark and the light is so dim, there is such pure delight in surrender to him. Now I am strong and my heart so free, love laid a hold on me. Love laid a hold on me, yeah, love laid a hold upon me, yeah. Thank you. All right, so I have some CDs and DVDs at the back. I'm not very modern, so, I think I have stuff on Spotify, but I don't know. I get like 5 cents a song. So buy a CD, even if you can't play it. You just buy it, please. Yeah, so there's some CDs at the back. I'll explain what's on them. There's DVDs, so I can be on TV. I've been on Huntley Street a couple of times, so if you go on my website, there's cards back there. My website is wendyhaha.com. Yeah, that's the secular site. And wendyhaha.com /Christian. It's on my cards. And I don't make the jewelry, so you don't have to spend all night asking, do you make this? No, I don't. Too busy. And so, I just started doing it as, are you ready to go home? Because I have another great story. Do you want me to tell another great? Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, well, there's one that's hovering, but it's okay. Yeah, so the jewelry, it's interesting how that got started. When I was walking my dog, so my dad wouldn't let me have a dog, and so the first one I walked was the little golden retriever 2 doors down. When I went back one day, the car wasn't in the driveway. The only person who drove the car was the missus. So I went in, and the man said, oh, you're our favorite little girl. Come in. He said, Rita, Wendy's here. Favorite little girl. Came. I thought, yeah, Rita's not upstairs because the car's not there. And he started like hugging me. There was a mosquito. He hugged me really tight, and so he exposed himself, and he was starting to molest me. So I got away, went home, told my dad, and I wasn't allowed to walk the dog anymore. 33 years later, I'm 40 years old, we're going to a church, and we're going to go to a conference in New Hampshire, and we thought we randomly chose this other couple to go with us. And so the husbands are in the front, and the wives are in the back. And we're driving along, and I said, oh, that's so funny. Your name's Wendy, and my name's Wendy, and your middle name's Elizabeth, and my middle name's Elizabeth. What's your maiden name? And she said, the maiden name. And I said, oh, the only person I ever knew by that last name molested me when I was 7. And then it's like, well, this is awkward. I was like, why did I say that? And she says, oh, okay. She says, where'd you grow up? I said, Pointe Claire, Quebec. She goes, oh, that's interesting. My uncle lived there, but it wouldn't be the same street. I said, what? She said, what street? I said, Parkdale. It was her uncle. So 33 years later, I'm sitting in the back seat in a city of 2 million people with the niece of my molester. What are the odds? So she said, have you ever had prayer for that? And I said, no, why? And she said, because sometimes God brings these things to the surface so that we can deal with them. And I never wanted to look feminine. I always wore, kind of mannish clothes and stuff. And so we went back to the city, to Montreal, and I asked the pastor and his wife to pray for me. And they laid hands and prayed, and this weight of shame lifted off of me like that. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So that person, and I know men and women in this room, like no question in my mind. I've been sharing this story for over a decade, and there's always people that come up after. I know, I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. But what happens is that they do the dirty thing, and then you feel dirty. You absorb the shame. And so I'm here to tell you tonight, you don't have to live under that. You say, well, a woman in Nova Scotia came up to me, 66 years old. She said, I've never told anyone this. I said, are you willing to be healed? She goes, no, it's too painful, and she left. Don't be like that. And so, as the healing, like a few days after I was prayed for, I started doing my hair and makeup. Like I just started, and then I went out and bought jewelry, and then I started buying nice clothes. And Wendy Elizabeth came back 3 weeks later. She'd been away. She came up to me in church. She's like, what happened to you? You're gorgeous. I'm like, I know, right? I'm hot. Yeah. And so it's because when your inside is healed, it shows on the outside, right? And so sometimes people are like, oh, it was in the past. Honey, if you want to understand the fruit, examine the root. And we're going to hear that more on Sunday. If you want to understand the fruit, go for the root and find out where is that anger coming from, where's the shame coming from, where's the feeling of, you always have to cover up your body. And so I started buying jewelry, and then I had too much of it. So when I was selling my CDs, I just put a little bit of it on the table, and it sold like this. And then I thought more and more, and then I started buying new, and it just, that's the, and it's called Joy Jewelry. There's no sign or anything, but it's Joy. Yeah, get Farha Jewelry, Joy. Yeah. And then when I was in Brantford, I was, 2014, we had separated, and I needed a cat. I just got to say, I have to have a cat. And so I went to the SPCA, and they didn't have any cats. I said, whoever heard of an SPCA with no cats? So I went to another SPCA, and no, they wanted like $180 in Hamilton for a cat. I'm like, no. So I went to PetSmart, and they only get their cats from and I was like, there's a shortage of cats. So I went on Kijiji. I got a used cat. And, yeah. Yeah. And I brought her home, and she was already named. Her name was Jewel. And I didn't even notice it, and my landlady said, that's God's... God like winks at you sometimes. It's like, here, I gotcha. I see you. I see your pain. I see your healing. And here's another little reminder. So the jewelry, it helps fund me. I go across Canada and parts of the States, and so you should buy some of that too, because Christmas is only like September, October. It's coming up, and there's little gift bags, and buy a CD, and if you can't play it, it's okay. They make great coasters. Look at this. Look. Yeah. And if you can't afford them, come up and tell me, and I'll pray for you. No. Okay. That's all for me for tonight, but are you going to come back tomorrow? Okay. I think the dampness is warping my guitar as we speak. Okay.
So do we get to name your talks? I don't know if you've named your talks.
Yeah, so Sunday, I was like Sunday, I think, tomorrow night is going to be like full-on comedy show.
Good.
Yeah. And there may or may not be some wigs. And then fun wigs. Oh, I'm going to zip this up so nobody sees them. And then Sunday morning, I'm going to talk about the transformation. And then Sunday night is an amazing topic on suffering. That's a real crowd pleaser. Yeah. End on a high note. But it's not going to be depressing because we're going to, it's going to be mixed up with some humor and jokes on suffering. Yeah. Why did the suffering person cross the road? I don't know.
Well, I've decided to call tonight's talk Closing the Gap and Loving Jesus with All of Your Heart.
That's lovely.